Hello and welcome to Lesson 1 in the Circle of Fifths Odyssey. I hope you're excited to get started. I certainly am. We're going to get going with some improvisation. Now, I find improvisation to be a great way to really explore with your student how the key signatures work, what scales really are, and what it all means, giving them a general sense of what these concepts actually are. Improvisation really helps you zoom out and allows them to see that big picture. So I start by asking my student what they think it means to improvise in the key of C major. What I'll do is tell them that we're going to improvise, and I'll scooch onto the bench right here beside them, because they know when we improvise we normally start with a duet, especially younger students, so they know the drill there. And I'll scooch onto the bench and say, well, what does it mean to improvise in the key of C? What are we going to do? And sometimes they'll say, okay, well, it means I can play the scale of C major, or they'll say it means I can play these keys, because they know they're pentascales. Whatever answer they come up with, guide them towards the understanding that really what it means is that they can't play the black keys. Now they can, but they're not going to sound great. So I explained that those are going to sound a bit off, a bit strange, and to avoid those and just use all the white keys. It doesn't have to start and finish on C, although that might sound good. It doesn't have to go from one C to the next. They can use any of the keys that I'm not using. Now in the plans, as we go through, I've given you examples of accompaniments that you can use for your students' improvisation. If you're someone that likes chording and you want to do something fancier or jazzier or just in your own style, go for it. These are not prescriptive. They're here because some teachers, and maybe this is you, some teachers really are not comfortable, and I certainly wouldn't have been a few years back, just messing around with chords without something written down. So they're there for comfort. They're not there to restrict you. The first one, C major, it's very simple. It just goes. So I'll loop that around lots and lots of times, and then I've given you a cadence for the ending. I like to put in those cadences as we go through. You can just continue and from F. That'll sound fine too. It's basically a plagal cadence, but putting in the more definite cadence is going to set us up for some of the work we're doing down the track. So that's a good idea to have that really distinctive, perfect cadence on the end. So after we've improvised a bit together, and if I have two students, I'll be having them do, one of the students do the improv, the accompaniment, so a 1-5, it can be super simple. If they have small hands, I suggest just using C and E for your 1, and B and F for the 5, and they can just do, or 1, 2, 3, 4, or if they're really itty bitty or they've just started, we'll be fine. As long as they keep a steady beat, that's their main job when they're down this side of the piano, and when their partner is up high, they get to improvise, and then of course they swap. Always give them an opportunity to do both. So make sure you budget the time for that. Now after we've done that, whichever way we're doing that improv in C, then I'm going to tell them that they're going to improvise now in G major, and ask them what they think that means. Some of them know that means F changes to F sharp. Some of them don't really. We explore it a bit together and try to find out what it is we're going to do differently this time. So once we've discovered the scale and what it means to be in G major, I will do some improv with them again. So again, if you have a second student, they're going to be down low doing something, whatever they like, whatever fits within their hands nice and comfortably. And if it's just you and your student, you're going to do the accompaniment pattern. So I've given you the same thing written out in G major just for comfort. Make sure you loop the main part around lots and lots of times as I've written there. It's important that they get the opportunity to explore and try out the sounds and find what sounds good, find what doesn't sound good. If you watch my videos of me with a student doing this, you'll see that often if they hit a wrong key, a big smile creeps across my face. And that's because when they hit F in the key of G major, instead of the F sharp, they can feel it. And they sometimes wince a little bit. And that's great because that's exactly what we're trying to get across here. Now, a note on the scales, right? These are not about scale practice. So don't be worried if your student is playing all finger 2 or doing something completely mad, Doesn't matter how twisted their arms get. That doesn't matter to me. What I want to see is that they're experiencing the scale and making music and understanding how it fits together. After we warm up with our improv and we explore C and G this week, we're going to do something I call Cadence Catch. So I'll demonstrate a 5-1 and a 4-1 cadence to my students. You're welcome to call these perfect and plagal. You're welcome to call them flippity doopity for all I care. I'm sticking with 5-1 as a terminology in these lesson plans for now because it's simple. You can explain to them why it's 5-1. If you play them in root position and talk about how the chords come out of the scale if you want to have that conversation. But the most important thing right now is the oral understanding of it. So I'm going to demonstrate both of those. It doesn't matter, which way you do it. You might do a 5-7, that's fine too, and a 4-1. And talk about how they'd sound a bit different. So have a bit of a discussion. How does it sound? Which one sounds like a more definite ending? Or does one of them make you think of a particular song? That kind of stuff. And then get them to try and identify these cadences. So you're going to play an example, and then they're going to answer you with actions. So if it is a 5-1 cadence, they're going to do superheroes hands on hips, Superman style. And if you do a 4-1 cadence, they're going to do the superhero hand in the air, one hand or two hands flying through the air. Just for a bit of fun and as a fun way for them to answer the question. So they stand up beside the piano there and they answer with those actions what they think it is. And if they're getting good at it, get them to turn around and do it without looking. But in the beginning, it's fine if they can see the piano. Lastly, for today, we're going to review the C and G scales or introduce them depending on your student's level. So if you're introducing them, you're going to do one octave, hands separately, maybe only going up, depending on your student's level. If your student already knows them, introduce something new at this stage. It should be a new, exciting pattern for them to try. So if they already know C major hands together, maybe you do a contrary motion, they already know that. Maybe you try the windmill style or the Russian style or something a bit fun. Maybe you split it up into thirds. It completely depends on where your student is and what they've tried so far. Make sure it's something new for them and that they're excited to explore this and advance their skills in scales. For their homework this week, we're going to assign them improvisations using the backing track. So I've provided these improvs that I'm at the sample improv as backing tracks for you. Download those yourself so you can play them in the lesson. But most of the time in the lesson, I want you at the piano. The backing tracks are really for the student to use at home. And if you want to make your own backing tracks with you actually at the piano playing your accompaniment, that's fantastic. Go for that. That'll be even better. But these are provided as an easier option for you. Now, when you're using backing tracks like this, you want to make sure that they are genuinely going to have access to them at home. So make sure that the parent is involved in this, that at the lesson, if they're older, you get them to download it on their phone where you can see it and they have access to it. If they're younger, get their parent to do it. Invite them in a few minutes early towards the end of the lesson if they're not there for the whole lesson, and get them to download the tracks onto their phone or talk with them about how they're going to access them at home. They have to find a way. There is a way to do it that is going to be simple enough for them, but you need to make sure that they really do it, because it's really easy for parents to just let these things slide. It seems like a little task, but it is key to getting this stuff understood and for your student to enjoy experimenting at home. You're also going to assign practice of the C and G scales, whichever way you worked on them in the lesson, so that we can get ready for next week when, you guessed it, week 2, we're going to introduce D major. I'll see you then.